I'm really not sure where we're going to go on this time around. Let's pull this up. Let's see how many cafes or borders or whatever. Border we haven't really been getting much of. It's like every now and then. Of course, we have our pre-banned map. Some people ask, how does this happen? Well, if the two teams played this map in the play day before, one of them played it, then it's removed. The other one, of course, removed another. If they both played the same map, then it's a randomized automatic ban. And I'm actually going to play Kafe. 3 out of the 5 games casted have been Kafe Dostoevsky.
Deal with it.
I mean,
I like casting Kafe.
I love Kafe. We had it on the very first playdate when it was introduced.
Yeah, we did it all four
maps in EU.
All 4 maps on EU, the Russian map on European soil. And you and I, if I remember, we got to guess the whole thing.
It was great. Honestly, I just love the map so much. Almost as much as I love our Road to SI map, if you have played it. I've been playing a ton of it over the weekend. Of course, you know, over the weekend coming to SI.
It's like the Bride of Frankenstein. It's like you cobbled together like Oregon and Hereford base, and you just smash them together in the middle of a stadium.
And it's great.
In Greece. We have the community vote for you here. It's a popularity contest. Is it? Is it not? We'll see. Who's going to win, BDS or forZe?
Ooh,
oh boy, that is really,
spicy.
Really close.
That is the closest I think we have ever had it. Please, production, can you ask our social media specialist if this is exactly the one? Because I've never seen it.
I thought we had a dead draw where it was like 45-10 and 45 one day. I mean, you got to remember.
That's pretty.
You got to remember.
Close.
We've been doing community votes now for like 3 seasons.
It's been a while.
And we have casted like 100, if not more, games. You expect us to have this, you know, like perfect memory. This photographic memory of every single community vote.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
You cast Pro League or what?
I mean, I do cast Pro League, allegedly. But at the same time, I don't have a memory for every single poll that we cast. Anyway.
If you can't remember that, I'm definitely not going to ask Michael.
Polls are just numbers, and numbers don't lie. Let's get into the BDS forZe game on your favorite map, Kafe Dostoevsky. And we'll start with the ban phase.
Yeah, we're just getting confirmation. This is the second time we get this exact same balance.
I was going to say, I think there was one with Rogue like 2 seasons ago, the North American Rogue. But forZe's first ban is going to be Capichao. And it's not really a surprise because, well, he's a very strong operator. And a lot of teams like to ban him, especially on Kafe. You think about the opportunities on every single floor where you can either shoot a fire arrow into the back bar, you can shoot a fire arrow over top of freezer on the main floor. You can do the same smoke off and shoot some fire arrows into reading, and of course through the windows. Capichao has a very profound impact in this particular map. He's joined by Thatcher, which, as we've seen many times, a Thatcher ban often allows a Mute and Mozzie combo to be exceedingly strong, and they both get run in tandem regularly when it comes to this map. So when you look at Kafe Dostoevsky, you're going to see Mute and Mozzie an awful lot. A Thatcher ban means that, well, if you want to bounce back, you're going to have to ban either Mute or Mozzie, but you ban the Echo instead, and Mirror goes, that's just a formality. This is going to be really challenging for the attackers to be able to collect information, but are we going to see forZe run the Mute and the Mozzie? Well, they got Mozzie on the board. There we go. And a Valkyrie from Pasha. Maybe 6-picked onto the Mozzie. Who knows? We'll take a look.
I mean, right now, when you spot the IQ on the other side, then you can switch it over to the Mozzie if you want. Yeah, to the Vigil.
Oh, okay.
Okay, fair enough.
Works well with Mute and Mozzie, though, for information denial, because obviously you can't really drone out the Vigil when his gadget's active. You get a good idea of where he is, but when you consider the fact that your drones are getting stopped or taken by Mozzie, or they're getting stopped and disabled by Mute, a Vigil is going to be exceedingly powerful. In this case, Kama's running the Mute, so you don't have to worry about the Mozzie, but what you do have to worry about is the fact that you're going to basically need to, as we call it, face check the Vigil. You're going to have to go in with your own eyes. You're not going to have the assistance of a drone to be able to determine the location of Pasha, and in particular, Pasha is such a good fragger that he can do well with Vigil's kit, and he's also a major headache just as an operator in general.
Yeah, what I'd expect is Pasha to be playing by mining or train and then rotate from there into reading, disrupt things as much as he can. Usually you put Mozzie because on top of everything, he can also set up some holes for himself with a secondary shotgun, plus he has a Nitro cell, so you can snipe people as they're entering from Cigar into the piano area, so that all works very well. But with the Vigil, if you're expecting your opponents to come in and clear bottom up, then you can definitely face check them and force them to face check you, in which case you will have a pretty decent advantage. Having the Nomad is great in this case because it counters that play if you're able to hold on to the top floor, and because you're not going to be pressured by many Nitro Cells, because there's a maximum of 2 that are possible for the defense right now, then you'll be sitting pretty and you won't have to deal with too much on the attacker swinging your way later in the round. But as usual, in this case, Mute Mozzie is great, but if you don't want to bring the Mozzie for more firepower, that's fine. Mute's going to be more than enough to disrupt things. And actually, we see Pasha downstairs inside of the kitchen in the meantime, so he's really going deep downstairs.
If there's anybody who's going to be able to locate Pasha, or at least be able to face check effectively, you've got to imagine that a team like BDS will do very, very well, especially with somebody like Shaiko, who's on Ash instead of a hard breacher. This is a bit of a rarity. There is only a Maverick as your singular hard breacher. Now, BDS banned out the Thatcher and is not running any other hard breachers because by removing Thatcher, you know that if there's a Kaid on the board, you know that if there's a Mute on the board, you're very limited as to what you can do to be able to take away that breach denial that comes from any of those 2 defenders or even a Bandit if you look hard enough.
One thing some teams are really good at is also bringing the buck, just because you can nade over the wall that you're seeing there. And Shaiko, okay, he grabs 2 headshots to open up the game. That's now Shockwave and Kama down, and Shaiko is just not stopping. He's pressuring in. He's actually entering inside of the freezer and turns around to check. There you go. It's clear through there. Lems has already gotten 1. He pre-fires into the Jaeger and finds the kill, and it's all down to Pasha now. Shaiko with the 3K to pretty much win the entire round right now for BDS. He's got impact grenades, but let's see what sort of impact he's going to have. None is your answer. Flawless from BDS. Shaiko grabbing 4 kills. He just steps in and wins them. Is this what Stokes looks up to? Because I get it.
I mean,
it's flashy.
Shaiko has very much cemented himself as, simply put, one of the most talented players and one of the best aimers, and that obviously extends to his fragging potential, or on support as well. Like, you think about the fact that he plays Hibana an awful lot. Shaiko has cemented himself as one of the best players, period, in all of Pro League right now, and if he keeps it up, he might be able to set an even greater legacy as to one of the best players that has ever played this game at a competitive level. Obviously, this being his return to competitive this season in particular, it might take some time for, you know, to, I guess, establish yourself yet again. But, anywho, the way that you saw BDS set up that execute is very similar to what we saw Latin America do and have done in the past when they provoke a Thatcher ban. And there's a Team Liquid matchup last week that did so exceptionally well on Villa. For people that actually watched that match, you will see that Liquid wanted to push on Villa attacks without a single hard breacher. BDS is doing something similar. Rafal as the Maestro is not going to be using his gadget to cut through reinforcements for easier access. Maverick is not exactly well suited for opening up ways into sites. It's usually simply holding angles or line of sights. And it's very clear that BDS is intending to use him that way. They dropped through Cocktail, or they dropped through Piano. They pushed on over to Cocktail. You could see forZe fall very far back. They had Pasha playing down below, assuming that BDS was going to clear that first and second floor. They did not, which is something that we don't see all that often. Teams will usually drone out first and second floor. BDS might have droned it out, but they certainly didn't effectively clear it the way we see a lot of teams do. So Pasha effectively ends up being a non-factor through most of that.
Exactly.
Round. It ends up being a 4v5, and then Shaiko just bursts through the cigar door, gets the 2 picks, and then the frag fest that BDS wanted goes according to plan. It is a 3v5, one of whom is downstairs. Shaiko does Shaiko things, and you don't need to worry about the utility that forZe is bringing, because you completely go around it.
That's 100% it, and they were able to go around it because there was nothing to slow down BDS. Nothing scared them in that round, because the biggest thing that scares you on this map are Mozzie pests and Nitro Cells. And when Mozzie's off, you don't have the sort of pressure that you can add. You see Shaiko constantly checking into mining on purpose because he knows that there might be a Nitro Cell at any point in time, because you're always expecting a forZe there. Right now, though, forZe is sitting on white stairs, so they're still using him defensively, as I'm pretty sure, after that first round specifically, forZe are not too keen to blast their way through BDS. It's kind of difficult to do that with how the setup's been going so far. I like this position from Rask, but you definitely don't expect people to just walk on in through Cigar. And Shaiko is just expending all of that ammunition. The man is feeding the military complex all on his own.
We actually did see the Maverick of Rafael open up a small hole, that little circle into the piano wall, and you can get through there. It's going to make very minimal noise. Now the rest of it is just being done to try and put pressure on this bar back store. An RXWD and a frag grenade primed and ready, but there might be an ADS on in. They'll get the call that you can toss it in, and there it goes. And it gets caught by an ADS that did not catch either flash grenade. That is particularly strange, as both the flash grenades might have been just outside of the range of that ADS, which will allow WTG to keep residency inside of that bar back store. So BDS is now just going to have to spring on in. Shaiko's unable to land the shots. 2 kills for forZe as they establish their dominance. Maestro is entrenched. Shaiko takes down 1, unable to connect onto Rask. So forZe now battling very effectively. Renshiro has switched spots with Kaid. He'll take out Rask. Oh, he snaps onto the Maestro, but he won't be able to get back into the bar storage room. And Pasha, much more of a factor in this round. He's going to do good work and get the very final kill.
I'm not sure there what happened with the ADS, if the flashbangs actually missed, or there was something where the Jaeger was around the corner and he was able to put an ADS at the last second and it caught it. I'm not sure it was in the range. Regardless, it just meant that you couldn't push the CUD away, and that's the most important part of it. The angle pressure that freezer affords you is huge, and it is 100% part of the plan for BDS for them to run the Maverick without grabbing a Thermite or a Hibana or any of the sorts, because when you grab those, it means you want to open up the freezer fridge stock area completely. In this case, that's not what they want. They actually want to corner the defender still in that specific location, because retakes are very possible if they fail in their assault. So what do? You have to face check yourself. You prepare your grenades, which in the normal cases would be more than enough to dispatch anybody sitting inside of the freezer. And suddenly you just walk into sight. You have to deal with a few operators, but there's pressure on white stairs. You just hold the flank, and you don't even need to really worry about that if you're swinging in hard from Cigar and bar itself. So in general, the plan was sound, but the anchor around which the entire defense holds on to, which is that freezer area, you could not dislodge it. Yeah. That lost you the round.
And the biggest difference was that the forZe got brought in place of the Vigil. The forZe gets brought, it means that the information that BDS had, which was more than what we saw in the second round, that first round, you don't have to deal with all the same nuisances and impediments that come with a Mute and forZe together, allowed Shaiko and the rest of that team to drone on in through Cigar all the way down to Cocktail.
Yep.
That was not something that we saw happen. Now, mind you, we might have missed it in regards to the spectator perspective, just because there's so much going on, but we didn't see the same information being held together. And that is what directed forZe to go from Cocktail, or to go from, I keep calling it Cocktail, I keep wanting to call it Cigar, but I keep calling it Cocktail, from Cigar and Piano over towards the White Stairs, because they knew that the lineup that we saw from the defenders was just as far back as it was in round number 1, but nobody was peeking. And nobody was peeking because nobody from BDS was going to take engagements. They didn't need to. Nobody from forZe needed to answer them back. And BDS isn't going to be as confident and as cocky to take those fights, even though they all have a number, they have a number of good aimers. There's no point in them taking those fights because they don't have the information. They don't know where people are playing. We saw the Maestro sitting back in Cocktail with a single reinforcement. He wasn't peeking it. He was just simply sitting and waiting on his Maestro cams. Those Maestro cams are now way stronger because the only counters to them, other than the projectiles, are going to be Sledge's hammer.
Exactly.
There's no Thatcher to take it out, and you don't see BDS running a Twitch. So there's so many different pieces to this puzzle when you look at it. And BDS did not have the same confidence because they didn't have the same information to play off of that. And I don't even think Shaiko was a factor at all in that particular round. It ended up being, was it Rafael that was playing the IQ that was sitting inside of the back bar just waiting, and he picked up some big kills, but I mean, you're in a 1v4 at that point. you're in a really tough spot. So it just goes to show you the power that comes in from that ban. Now, mind you, BDS was the one who banned Thatcher. So they were obviously confident enough that they could play around Mutant Mozzie enough on attack. Or maybe they just thought, Kafe wins, the defenders win on Kafe a lot. Who cares if we lose most of those defending rounds? Or attacking rounds. We'll make it up when we go on to defense. We can probably play around it. forZe might not be prepared for it. Who knows?
I like how they went for the glass first and then 6-pick to the Ash. I don't think anybody would have been fooled by that, especially if it's Shaiko on the pick. But it does fool forZe in thinking like, okay, are they going to bring a Habana or will they be bringing Ash? That's probably the mindset behind it if you want to dig deeper into that. That said, Goyo is in play right now, so I'm sure Emzo sitting at home getting all giddy right now, seeing the operator in play. One Volcan has already been deployed, and you'll see the soft wall defense. This is something that's been way more common in that freezer area, where instead of double reinforcing and reinforcing the hatch on top, you'll reinforce one side, usually the right-hand side, because it affords you a bit more space in contesting all the way down into the stairs. You can put a smoke, a pulse, depends on on your strategy. In this case, I assume one of the Goyo Volcans will be set as well, right under those white stairs to protect any player defending by the Christmas tree. All of that, great bit of strategy. Those soft walls, especially if they're just breached a bit with shotguns, they really mess up attackers. It usually forces them to second guess a lot of their decision making, but in this case, this is starting to become the metagame for Kitchen, so people will have that in their heads going into it. Legion's got to be huge as well, just to give you a lot of information. And you see, RXWD has to go all the way around to cover now, instead of just walking on in through the wall with his through the door with his drone, because of that Mozzie. The pest is always there, and it really slows you down. There's Shaiko that goes for it. We've had so far around 30 seconds that have just been wasted thanks to that pest, and now you can see the effect that Mozzie has directly on the run by existing and just using his utility, not even counting the duo with the mute. This is something that usually is very difficult to spot.
And there's been quite a lot of chatter, actually, from a variety of different pros, people playing at the high level, and people playing at amateur levels, as well as the impact that a Thatcher ban has. And while it used to be mostly isolated to Latin America, we are starting to see Thatcher's pick rate creep, or ban rate rather, creep up outside of that region, in particular North America and Europe, and somewhat in APAC. Now down goes Shockwave early on. Not ideal. The pulse caught on the scanner as you see some destruction on that second floor, which leads to the IQ of Renshiro with his gadget out, and the game of cat and mouse that ensues whenever there's an IQ and a pulse in play at the same time. For those that might not be aware, when pulse is on his scanner, you get spotted by IQ's gadget, and then that pistol does enough damage that you can take somebody out with it. Once again, the only single hard breacher that's being ran from BDS is going to be Maverick, so they are very clearly expecting to know how to play around the Thatcher ban by not, prompting a Thermite or Hibana. Shaiko will encounter the shot open wall as WTG is just down below, and you'll hear the rattles of the Vector not too far off. Inside of VIP, Shaiko's got his gadget out, ready to pick away. There's 3 members of forZe that can all engage to trade off Shaiko if something goes awry. He'll have to be very wary of brown stairs, which is where we saw Rask playing. There's going to be one air jab going off, and Pasha with the opening pick. That's a huge one, and a beautiful shot. Kama taking a significant amount of damage, and 20 seconds left, as BDS have not been able to drone out and determine the location of the defenders. That's a shot from Renshiro through the wall. Great call. Rask twists and turns. Another for Renshiro as he looks to walk on in. It's all up to Pasha and WTG. They will try their best to get back on into the site. Vector takes down RXWD as the diffuser goes off for BDS. They have a chokehold on this round. Renshiro picks up kill number 3, looking for number 4 with WTG far enough away from the site and no way in. This patchwork quilt that we see on the wall just inside a freezer. WTG sustaining quite a bit of damage, and kill number 4 was in line for Renshiro, but it's going to be Alems who gets it on yet another trade. BDS will take round number 3, 2 attacking victories on a Kafe, where you see a Thatcher ban. That is impressive, and should not necessarily be the trend line for the attackers over the rest of the matchup.
No, definitely not, if you ask me. They just went in. They completely ignored the usual dancing around, hey, are we really going to come in from freezer or not? They just gun for it. They just tried to, BDS that is, tried to take control of Brown Stairs. They lost one player in there, but by the time they lost him, it was too late. It was too late. They had already planted or were close to planting, if I remember correctly, and the round was over. You just had operators that couldn't really do much. You had some utility left with the Goyo, but those shields didn't stop BDS at all. They really had no effect.
They're very limited as the utility soak and the area denial that comes with it. As it, you see both of them going up. This is very telling. Look at this. Thatcher's ban rate is only 3%. Yeah, we've seen EU banning Thatcher a fair amount.
Specifically on this map, by the way.
And we've seen
these bans are specific to Kafe Dostoevsky in EU.
And if you go back, I know it's not Kafe, but if you go back to the playdate that Kix and I casted, which was playdate number 3, well, you'll see that there was a Thatcher ban on Consulate. If you go back to playdate number 1 of EU as well, you'll see that there was 0 Thatcher bans. So not necessarily a trend line yet, and you can weigh in here on matches 2 or playdays 2 and 4 that you took part in. But the Thatcher ban is not as common necessarily as you'd imagine. Now, if you look at the lineup for forZe, we will spend quite a large period of time discussing the information game. It is something that defenders have utilized very effectively, which is why you tend to see operators like Maestro and Echo and Mira and Pulse and Valkyrie lead the way in bans, because all 5 of them do one thing really, really well: give information for the defenders. In this case, the Mute is being subbed out for Shockwave off of the Pulse onto the Vigil. So yes, Vigil's cloaking device can be spotted by the gadget of Renshiro's IQ. Very similar situation could unfold that we saw from Shockwave losing his life early. However, Vigil's going to be played differently from Pulse. You can play Pulse in a number of ways, whether you're deep inside of the site, whether you're off roaming and assisting a roamer, etc. This Vigil from forZe will very likely be done to waste a significant amount of time and play around those pests that are set up from Pasha, so that forZe can maximize the duration of the cloak that we see Shockwave engaged with, and then maybe get a pick or 2. This might be an issue for BDS's entry, but they haven't wasted any time as Shaiko is on White Stairs, all the way on 3rd floor, and he'll drone himself in with RXWD not too far off, droning below him.
So if you look back at that, Thatcher ban that oh, there you go. There's the play from the past. But it happens a couple times in North America where that Thatcher was banned. It was mostly on Villa. We had him on Consulate, I believe. Well, Kafe Dostoevsky, excuse me, the one time it was really put in play. I guess it was playdate number 3, if I'm not mistaken. But if we look back at Latin America, it's definitely way more of an actuality. I mean, what is it? 3, 4. So what is it? In the past 16 games that were played, he was not banned for 14 or 15 of them. All of those 14, 15 games, he was banned. So it definitely seems like to be the case in LATAM, not so much here.
I do want to touch on the fact that you said those volcanic shields had not been that effective as a utility soak, and you were absolutely correct in round number 3, but so far we've already seen BDS be able to pick away at them, and Shaiko on his opening gambit almost loses it. At the bottom of White Stairs, it's going to take 50 HP off or thereabouts, and he's going to have to get out as quickly as he can. I think that's a blind frag grenade tossed on in from RXWD over towards Kochik, expecting somebody to be there, and now another one goes down into the double doorway that's leading into the freezer component of Kitchen. It appears to be a drop into said freezer with forZe all aligned on the other side of the map. Shaiko's going to be first one in, RXWD gunned down by WTG, and it's a shootout at OK Corral, with Shaiko picking up a kill onto Rask, Shockwave being recalled to site, and everybody trying to ride off the logic bombs from Alems. Plant going down, but it gets shut down by Kama. He's down in the process, but still, objective play for BDS will need to be followed up on. There's one for Pasha, grabs Shaiko from the back, another on Renshiro, and it's an absolute calamity, with forZe taking round number 4. BDS, they'll take the odd rounds. forZe will take the even ones. We're back tied up at 2-2.
What's the requirement for this push? If you want to drop from the hatch with no security behind you, especially with a soft wall in the freezer, the one thing you need to do is win your flank 1v1s. Unfortunately, the Goyo was able to defeat that sledge coming down the White Stairs, and once that was done, your flank's busted. You don't have anything. It's only a matter of time. You might be able to enter the site, but the Legion there sacrificed himself for the greater good, and that was it. Not allowing the diffuser to be planted. If it was planted, the attackers would have had an easier time holding on to the kitchen itself, but I guess the IQ coming into the bakery was a bit too slow to push into the flank and fight against that red stairs and subsequently the bar itself. Because your flanks were lost, it was only a matter of time, and it really all happened and was over really, really fast for BDS. They had the right intentions and definitely the right mindset for it, but there was one important section, which is just winning that fight against the Goyo. You win that gunfight, and your round is definitely doable.
It's funny because the way that the Goyo is situated downstairs inside of VIP by that Christmas tree, with the 1/2 wall and the freezer opened up, and the Goyo shield positioned by the doorway, means that if you want to push him, you're going to need to use some utility first. That's what Shaiko's job was. But the moment that Shaiko tried to push in, there's somebody watching from forZe over by Brown Stairs, and there's usually somebody positioned that, if the call is made, can rotate very quickly towards the freezer, which has that second wall opened up, in a very inconvenient position where you can't really do a ton of work to open it up even farther. This was something that we saw actually work to the detriment of forZe in round number 3, when it was the Goyo being played by WTG. He couldn't get on in back to freezer because of the way it was shot open. So Kala's going to end up being the very first pick. I don't know what the mute was doing, and I don't know why he got picked. It looks like he was playing semi-aggressively or got caught in a rotate over by pillars on second floor, but that's going to be one down for BDS as they pick up that very first kill. That's a C4 off the board. Now, maybe the mute was playing down by pillars, as we've seen teams do before when it is a cocktail defense, as it is for forZe. You play down by pillars, you have the Nitro Cell in hand, you might have a portion of the floor shot open so you can toss a C4 up and arc it well, or it might just be there for somebody who drops New Hatch. Shaiko doing Shaiko things as the Nitro Cell sails over his shoulder and he cleans up the rest of Pasha, and now forZe have lost the first 2 engagements so far with still over a minute and a half of the round to go.
That 1v1 fight reminds me a lot of how to counter Ying. A lot of times when you see Ying just chucking in her candelas, you need to push her and fight her before those go off, because a lot of them will just be busy with a second candela, or they're just too confident in them winning the gunfight. And this is the moment for you to go in. Same thing happened there. The Nitro Cell sailed over. Instead of seeing Shaiko running back and getting annihilated, he ran in and took the gunfight, knowing that he was going to be lost regardless. Might as well at least attempt to take that Mozzie down with him. He was successful and is alive. But Alems right now is putting a ton of pressure on the backlines of forZe, and Shaiko is feeling it. If he's pushed a bit off, this might be clean, easy pickings for Shaiko.
The other thing, too, is that because you see Alems playing on those windows, he's likely got an air jab down at the opportunities for the defenders to jump on out, which means that even if you still had a 5v5, you can't really commit an extra person to do that because you're going to lose the fight straightforward due to the power of the air jab. And the only real way that the defenders are going to win it is if they pivot and take the gunfight. Shockwave manages to take down Renshiro. He gets hit with an air jab, knocked onto his behind, and he's got the soft wall as well to fire on through. That Alda doesn't need to reload. Still got 22 bullets, and another shot. This time onto Shaiko. It's still got Nakog for the time being. He's positioned inside a cocktail, waiting for somebody else to come on and push on in, and he'll miss his shots onto RXWD. They haven't droned out bar back store, so it's all on Rask's shoulders, but he'll grab the diffuser. 2 players from BDS will be tasked with picking up that diffuser and fulfilling the objective. Rask waiting for calls to spring on out. All he needs to do is just shoot the diffuser. That's it. Find Alems and you've got this round for your team. You spy one, but it's behind the reinforcement. Well played by BDS. The objective is down. Diffuser will need to be disabled by Rask. He doesn't have a ton of info. He's a great aimer, but he'll lose the fight. Alems picked up the very first kill. He'll pick up the last kill while also planting the diffuser. I think that's what you call a team player, Gassan. And like I said, BDS, they're going to take all the odd rounds, and they'll take round 5 as well.
Yeah, looking at things now, it looks like forZe might be the one to grab this 6th round and turn it into a tie heading into the second half. Now, you saw Alems on the rappel. That's a very common strategy. We don't see it as much when it comes to pressuring the specific window, the left-hand side one that he was pressuring, and not the one that is heaven, cocktail balcony, whatever you want to call it nowadays. Usually, you'll see someone pressuring from that window and then diving in as the assault onto the bar commences. Wasn't the case. Alems focused his entire strategy around that and all of his play to it. He committed to it, and by the time they had at least the bar covered, he was able to rappel in and take control of the site. Rask was the last alive. He couldn't really stay in that position because of the pressure from the window. Fell back, tried to play from inside a piano. Got 1 kill, but it wasn't.
I really wish we'd had a better perspective as to what was going through the minds of Kama when he got picked up by Alems at the start of the round, because that really ended up being a massive moment for BDS. Number one, it's very unlikely with the way you see a bar and cocktail defense structure that there's going to be anybody else playing off-site. So even though you're at a disadvantage because there are Mute and Mozzie combo on the board, you got those pests to deal with as well as the Mute jammers. As long as you can drone out 3 people, you can dedicate 1 person to flank watch and still have an advantage, and that's exactly what BDS did. They had Alems on the windows, you've got air jabs in play. BDS didn't need to sweat it, and we could see from forZe's setup that they had most of their operators within striking distance of the site, if not on the actual site itself. So because of this, not only do you take off the 1 player that's down below, you don't have to worry about somebody C4ing you, so you can play more freely in areas like around New Hatch, in areas around Cocktail, in areas around Cigar. But on top of that, forZe didn't have any way to simply outgun BDS because you have that Nomad in play, you're cornered inside of the objective, and you just lose your fights. Now, with that said, BDS still did lose, I think, too many people to Shockwave playing in that position, but forZe learn from these disadvantages that they find themselves in, and they make small tweaks. Here's one right now. The Mute has been subbed out for a Valkyrie. With an IQ on the board, I think a lot of people could argue that Valkyrie isn't as strong if you've got a reliable IQ, and Renshiro's played one every single round, but still, it's going to change up forZe's playstyle. And we can see Kama down below, he's going to be playing a very similar spot that he did with Mute, so it doesn't matter what operator he's in. There goes the C4, and it'll miss.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the Nitro Cell and how great it can be, but Renshiro dodges it as he pretty much personifies the support IQ. Just pulls out his secondary, the actual ability, his cassette threat, as you can tell with the Elite skin. And yeah, he can just hold on forever. That Nitro Cell just cannot do anything to them. They can dodge it, they can deal with it, no problem.
Attackers have located
I like the adaptation. I like the fact that they took away the cut because it definitely was an operator that had pretty much no effect thanks to the Maverick. But at least have the TCSG there on the Goyo to use. Now, trying to burn off the ADSs before grenades start sailing in. And there is one set of those, of course, brought in by our XWD Sledge. It hits. The shield is also down. You're good to go when it comes to the freezer. And Rafale should have enough space right now to even open up a bigger hole. But Rask will find the first kill for forZe, slowing things down.
It's just under a minute left for both of these teams, and as you pointed out, it's not just the first kill for forZe, but you can hear a lot of their guns starting to heat up, one of whom happens to be Shockwave, who has not been shaken out of that same position, and because there's no Hibana, you're not going to be able to do much to break the reinforcement. Down below, Kama has been spotted and down, so it's a glorified 4v3 that favors BDS. They can't pick up the necessary shots onto Kama to finish him off, so he's going to be a non-factor. Rask through one of the cabinets, takes out Renshiro. Detonates the Goyo shield, and there goes Renshiro for good. Diffuser once again goes down. This is the 3rd time for BDS. They've been playing the objective very well. Rask picks up another. He's got 3 on the round. He's looking for all of them. And he'll need to get all of them now that we see Shockwave fall. Kama's not been picked up. You have to outduel the same man who stopped you in your tracks last time, and that's Alems. And finally, the curse of the even and the odd, Milosh, is gone. BDS picks up their 2nd round in a row, and they will take an attack on Kafe with Thatcher Band. 4-2.
That's not too shabby, to say the least. And honestly, I'm very impressed with Alem's decision-making. The fact that he said, okay, we're clear, we're planting, they don't really need me to be anywhere. I already placed my air jabs. I'm just going to stay inside a freezer.
Yep.
And the Maestro obviously does not expect anybody to be there. He's expecting someone to be around the bathroom, to be pushing from white from that angle to try to cut him off. Obviously, the attackers, BDS, don't know if the Valkyrie was taken out or not. You're just assuming because you don't get the points for downing and injuring as you do in regular play. Something I'd like to be experimented with. But
protect your bombs from being defused by
it was great play from him to position himself there. It definitely caught forZe off guard. They were not expecting him. They were not expecting the plan to be so far back. And by the time he got the Maestro, the round was pretty much done. Dager tried, but they know exactly where you're going to be coming from. Your opportunities are very limited if you're the Jaeger there. And a clear victory for BDS, a 4-2. But they now start off on bar themselves. significant changes. No Goyo, as we saw. No Maestro that we saw from forZe. There's no Mozzie. There is a Mute. There's a Valkyrie, which is
5 seconds
a
left.
very powerful operator to have here if you want to keep tabs on forZe. But a castle is not something you usually see specifically on this bar site. So I wonder whether setting things up here for Renshiro. Now, this is the strategy that you're setting up usually.
Oh.
It's that piano pick. But well, speaking of picks, it's
Oh
Shaiko.
boy.
How did he? Oh my God, that's. So he just.
I mean, that's very common.
That's very common. I'm like, why didn't you check that when you spawned in?
Shaiko gets the very first pick onto Shockwave, 10 seconds into the round, and already forZe will find themselves at a disadvantage, and a possible significant one, given that it's an IQ that has been removed from the board. Now, one of the things that BDS is going to take advantage of with the castle is they're going to look to, once again, soak up as much utility from the attackers as possible. This is what we refer to Goyo as. Maestro somewhat acts as a utility sink as well. ADSs, of course, can eat up utility too, even though they are, you know, your durable, projectile denial, etc. So if you look at forZe's lineup, their utility that you're going to see get eaten, that the castle is going to be particularly good at, is both Pasha as well as Rask. WTG, I don't know if he was actually looking to drop, but BDS have this tag team duo with some bullet holes inside of the Humidor that will find yet another kill for BDS. That's a very good start, and they're actually in a position where they could be going up 5-2 over forZe very quickly. 1:40 still to go, but there goes even greater utility. Your Twitch is gone, you've lost your IQ. The mute jammers that are going to be on the board, they're going to be a lot harder for you to deal with now.
Problem for forZe, how do we break into piano? Imagine you're halfway through the round and you still have not solved it. And oh, Shaiko, what a long angle that he uses. He finds one kill, but Renshiro gets another, leaving only Kama alone. Not for long, there's Rafael to clean him up. Close to perfect there from BDS. You saw 1.5 minutes in, and you just opened the castle barricade, and the long angle that's set from bar through the bar to piano wall that is left soft and with a hole in the center, an angle all the way down there through piano onto piano window. That is a very long engagement, but perfectly timed. Shaiko hit the perfect shot there, and it ended up toppling forZe even harder than they were after losing those first two players very early in the round. Great performance. This is just BDS. You might say, oh, they're not really running strats, they're just peeking them. Let's be honest. A strategy does not need to reinvent the wheel. A strategy is something that is as tiny as opening a couple of rotation holes, or 7 if you're Chas. And in this case, it works fine. A peek early on, even if you don't get a kill, you just gave yourself 20 extra seconds because forZe are going to be afraid of you. And this is something that BDS are so good at, traditionally speaking, even if you look, especially actually, if you look at their offline performance, they're so good at dictating the pace of a game. And once they get into it, you're not going to be able to stop them easily. And right now, forZe are really struggling to have an opener because BDS are always the ones coming out the gate swinging with no response on the other team.
Well, you're not going to see the same gamble being taken from BDS right now, and it will inspire some fear into the hearts of forZe, though that I would argue that there isn't much that strikes fear into the hearts of any of the Russian teams that we've seen compete at even an amateur level, let alone those at the highest level. You know, it's one of, I think, Flynn's favorite phrases is that Russian machine never breaks, which is actually a nod to, if I remember correctly, a hockey website that involves, you know, the fact that in hockey there's an awful lot of Russians who play the game.
Are you trying to say that Flynn actually watches hockey?
As a Canadian, I need to make a certain amount of hockey references per day, or else my citizenship gets revoked. And in this case, I just figured why not do it on a twitch.tv/Rainbow6.
Look, man, healthcare for hockey jokes, completely fine with that.
WTG is trying to determine the location of one member from BDS who's playing in the back storage room of the bar. Renshiro's there to catch them. Rask almost loses his life, and then Aldo with so many bullets. 80 bullets. 80 damn bullets, by the way.
No ACOG, by the way.
Doesn't really matter what kind of optics you have on that. Renshiro is just going to gun them all down, and forZe are unable for the second round to even get inside of the building, much less get anything going. Shockwave is almost completely dead, and WTG is still alive, so you've got, at minimum, your 2v5 that BDS looks to ride out for the remainder of this round. It'll be match point for BDS unless something goes terribly awry. What do you even do in this situation if you're forZe? You know, you're very limited on utility. There goes one of the drones. Even more intel's gone. Renshiro picks up his third kill. He just needs a fourth. Diffuser is down. It's surrendered by the Humidor. WTG will engage in one. Snaps on to RXWD. It's got the location of Renshiro, but the double reinforced panel will stop anything from happening. Bear in mind, this is a defense of the second floor, and all of the action is on that third floor. As we say, you clear from the top down. In this case, forZe hasn't really cleared much of anything.
No, this is like Stokes waiting outside the club trying to get in. It's not going to happen.
What is with your crusade against Stokes?
I don't know why.
Why are you're on a Stokes train?
I mean, Stokes, Flynn, Blue every now and then. Who knows?
Oh my. WTG finds a second kill. It ends up being impactless. Alems finishes things off. A great performance so far today from Alems. That has been the story, other than BDS looking extremely formidable. But there were some very big shoes to fill when Panix came off of this BDS roster. Probably one of the most surprising roster moves so far this season, or rather, off-season. And Alems comes on in. Alems did not statistically look like the best player on Team Secret.
Oh, no.
But he has a rapport with these players. Obviously, he is a fellow countryman.
Ex-teammate as well.
Ex-teammate. So Alems is in a position where he comes in, and there were parts of the community that were very critical of that move, questioning Alem's contributions. And he didn't have the best start, I think you could say, as a lot of players don't. But he's really picked it up. And BDS have looked in fine form. They also started the day in 7th place, was it? Or 8th place. Tied with Na'Vi at 4 points. And unless we completely flip the script on this one, and forZe manages to win 4 consecutive rounds in a row, BDS will vault all the way from 4 points up to a tie with Empire. And depending on the round differential, they might actually surpass them for a brief moment, because currently BDS is a -1 and Empire is a +5. BDS would actually trail, because technically if they win 7-2...
Empire also beat them 7-3. So.
Well, I was going to say, yes, that is also true, but additionally, it didn't really matter anyway, because on round differential, even if BDS wins 7-2, they get a +5, they would only be a +4. So they would still trail Empire. So Empire, your first place is still safe regardless of what happens in this matchup. However, forZe, you are starting the day in 2nd place, and you are now in a position where you're probably going to lose that.
There it is again. The man double peeks, but WTG is ready for him. You're not expecting anyone to double peek, but WTG in this case, like,
he's having a great time. He's having a great time.
Honestly, go for it. You're at 6-2. You're good. You can go experiment with things. It's okay.
I believe it was in the wise words of Abraham Lincoln. When you're feeling it, you're feeling it. So he was feeling it. I wonder if Abe Lincoln was feeling it when he crushed the South.
I think some people have not recovered from that
to this day. Abe Lincoln woke up on like the very last day of the Civil War, and he's like, you know what? When you're feeling it, you're feeling it. 10 score, 4 score. And
7 years ago.
I was feeling it.
And now I am again.
You think he says it? I don't know. But anyway, Shaiko's been having a great game. So has Alems. Alems has been the story for BDS. The crazy part is that with giving up your very first pick, you're giving a little bit of ground and a little bit of momentum that forZe can maybe dig up that you didn't necessarily need to give, especially when you've been clobbering forZe every step of the way. You could have just played it safe and not taken that gamble. And, you know, peek the double door, the main door, as a lot of people call it. You didn't need to do that. BDS, you did not.
Well, 10 score in 7 rounds ago, we were staring down at a tie and, you know, a close game with one team adapting to the other. And it looks like forZe are unable to adapt to their own playstyle, really, here. They'll be able to find the Electro Claw, so Pasha's going to be facilitating the entry here for his team. There's the ADS's caught, and the Habana should be able to open the hatch, as you just hear.
If people are wondering why that was positioned the way it was, because I think that's very valid, why not, if there's an IQ on the board, just put it on the hatch itself, is because from that angle, it can get both of the walls in Caesar and then the hatch, too. Because, of course, they've updated the range.
There's another one.
WTG is going to pick up the second pick for forZe, takes out Renshiro. Renshiro has also been instrumental for BDS so far today. a 3v5 with the way that BDS is playing. I still think they're very much in this round, but it really depends on WTG picking up kill number 3. Diffuser for Kama about to go down. Rafal will almost not be able to make it back into the site. RXWD with 1, looks for a second, he'll pick it up, pistol out, tries for the engagement, loses it, forZe wins the round. WTG picks up 4 very big kills. Obviously happy about that one. They're gonna need to grab a lot of momentum from that round. And Shaiko, the man, the myth, the legend, he gave it to them. You're giving the momentum away, and you're letting your round differential slip away. BDS, you're still gonna set a match point, but you can't make those mistakes. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Okay.
Fair enough, Parker. You're always so wise.
That's not true.
Definitely not true.
This opens up bar and cocktail though. Again, we almost flew under the radar that BDS narrowly completed a full cycle on defense. But this just goes to show you why BDS banned out that Thatcher. Not only are forZe losing to early engagements in which they shouldn't, which maybe they're just not droning, maybe they're not expecting it, BDS are being unpredictable and taking chances they don't usually need to take, and pro teams don't usually take, sure. But even after that, we have seen forZe struggle. Despite being down players, you still have drones left. But despite that, we have still seen forZe struggle to gain intel, just as BDS did on a number of rounds, but BDS went for fights with more confidence that we saw out of forZe. And like we said, it stands to reason. When you're the team that bans Thatcher, you probably know how to use the ban to your advantage, and so far, BDS are doing fine.
Exactly. It's double disruption. You put a lot of pressure early on in the round, and then later in the round, even if you're down 1 player and we're able to trade her in some way, you still make things a lot more difficult for forZe, because there's 2 things you need to remember if you're playing the game. Not only are you trying to bleed out your opponents in numbers, but you're also trying to run the clock down. Those 2 things you can use to your advantage massively. And you see, just because of those earlier runouts, it's slowing down forZe. It's taking them time to get to the roof. We're close to around 30 seconds, and they're just now rappelling 1 by 1 up to the top. There's a lot of windows that are open, a ton of them right now, and forZe just never know when the strike is going to come from BDS. So they're going to have to watch for it. They might need to dedicate utility by bringing a Nomad or a Gridlock if they're able to win this round. But again, it all is on top of them right now. They win this round, then they're still going to need to fight to guarantee at least 1 point in this play.
As you can hear from the sound of a telltale smoke grenade going off, there are no operators on forZe's side that have access to smoke grenades. So RXWD has been the one that's been smoking it off, and it's the red hatch. Thank you very much for moving the spectator on over in that position, because I was trying to determine what exactly the smoke is doing to burn through it that effectively. RXWD as well, he's got a couple of these little bullet holes on the humidor. So he'll wait. He'll just wait for somebody to walk on in. If they haven't droned him out, which is unlikely that they may have, he's going to be in a power play. I don't know if Rask just droned him or not. It might have actually sailed on past. I don't know from the perspective that we just saw of the drone if the smoke's position was given away. But because the double door opened up, you gotta move regardless. So it's very unlikely that the smoke is still playing there. No, he has moved, because you saw some of forZe's gadgetry get used on the double doors, and now with it, you've got, I guess, a little bit easier entry in towards Piano, which there was very narrowly an engagement taken from BDS.
I'm curious if BDS have double reinforced by the usual Maestro position in Cocktail. It's a really powerful spot, and we see them doing that. Okay.
It's got to rotate.
Yeah, and this time it's a rotate, so there you go. Just because they're not the ones that are running Maestro anymore, Pasha can use that breach round later on to deal with any utility if he spots any, but right now the entire focus is on that stock/freezer area with 2 grenades left for Rask and no nitro for Lems downstairs.
And the reinforcements from BDS suggest that they knew that this wall was going to get taken up. That was almost a near miss for Rask onto a Lems. That C4 could have done some significant damage, but opening pick goes to forZe. 30 seconds left. You're going to have to hasten your pace just a tiny, tiny bit if you want to prevent BDS from taking hold of the round, and with it, the matchup too. But because of the way that the reinforcements went, forZe knows that they are going to be playing somebody in bathroom. Shaiko gets the opening pick for his team, trade off from Pasha, and Plant goes down, so forZe will need to sit over top of it. Goes one from each side. Shockwave drops, and it's all up to Rafael. Diffuser is down. There's Rafael with the shotgun out. You'll have to pick it up. He's playing narrowly around the corner. They don't have it. On time! He levels one to the chest of Kama, but nobody from forZe was able to pick up the diffuser. It doesn't matter if you get that kill or not. BDS, scoreline 7-3. They'll take our very first matchup of the day as they grab it. They snatch it from the jaws of forZe on that very final round.
Now that was a hell of a way to finish game number 1. I do have to stress it. That was 100% forZe's round to win. I mean, you know it because you're sitting next to me, but people at home didn't see it. When Shockwave dove over the railings and went for the shot on the smoke, I was pointing at him like, yes, this is the play that'll end the entire thing.
I was sitting right here.
There's your proof, believe it or not.
I watched it happen.
And honestly, I was thinking there's no way they recover this. Yet somehow the diffuser was dropped in the freezer and it could be watched by the mute.
Well, it's funny because you saw forZe attempt to get the plant down, but they were right in the middle of the site. And I think what they were very wary about was the location of Rafael on mute, because you know how susceptible you are to a C4 when you're planting right under the skylight. It's exactly between the two pillars. And if you've got a nitro cell in hand, like mute usually does, and you don't know the location of the last member, then you're in trouble. And those troubled waters, you got to try to ride out. And they found safe harbor, and it didn't end up being all that safe because Rafael got the kill anyway because they didn't have any information. And this loops back to the 2 stars of the show, which were Mute and Mozzie, being able to deprive that intel from the attackers over and over and over again. And I think it is starting to dawn on people, and you, the viewer, hopefully are picking up on this. The impact that a Thatcher ban has on any map that has narrow corridors, relies on vertical play, as you see the 2 drops onto Cocktail and Bar from New Hatch and Red Hatch, and how powerful that can be. BDS played around it very, very well. On forZe's side, they came narrowly close on round 10. Rounds 7 and 8, forZe's first 2 attacks, they were utter blowouts. They lost, they got smoked. forZe comes in on round number 9, and they have a very dominant performance on Kitchen. They look to be finding their way on the Bar Cocktail attack on round 10, but then at the very final seconds, it ends up coming down to the objective, and the diffuser gets surrendered, falls down, and that's it. So BDS plays around it, they win 4 rounds on attack, and then they dominate on defense, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it really was crazy to see it, but this is what you get for constantly dictating the pace of the game. If you're doing it on attack, then it's only a matter of time that you're able to win when you switch to your defensive side. It really is the case. Look back and check any VOD, any game that you want, on LAN, offline. Whenever a team is able to dictate specifically on defense how things go, then they'll be better on attack. Same goes for if they start off on attack. They're going to have a good time once they go to the second side. It's just putting your opponents on their feet the entire time.
Russian teams getting bamboozled by French team bans, name a better duo. I will always remember when Empire's winning streak / not losing streak was broken 2 seasons ago by a team that was known as Lestream, who managed to ban a second hard breacher on Clubhouse against Empire and then played around it to great success and defeated the Russian machine, which nobody else had managed to do so far that season. I actually believe when we were doing predictions, I think it was the only caster that actually voted for the stream. Everybody else voted for Empire. It was a big, juicy 1 point. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a proud moment. It's a very proud moment. I like to think back on it very often, actually. It's great. What do you think about?
Those are very late nights.
What do you think about? Oh, I didn't say I think about it late at night. But anyway, it's very obvious that forZe was just not prepared whatsoever for those bans. And that really was the story of this matchup. I mean, Mute and Mozzie, sure, they're very formidable on a lot of maps, and teams are able to play with them very effectively. But when forZe sees the Thatcher ban, and they still stick to the Mira ban, instead of banning a Mute or a Mozzie, and you saw them run both of those operators a lot, they had an opportunity to try and take an advantage away, but they were boxed in by the ban, and it ended up being really beneficial for BDS to get that second ban.
And look at the big difference between how forZe and BDS were playing that bar site. what forZe were mainly doing is trying to hold on to that freezer, so it was easily predictable, and by the second round, you just know that you just lob a grenade in there and you can deal with the player inside.
Yep.
forZe were able to net a couple rounds, one of them being on that bar site. You got figured out it's not going to work afterwards. Whereas for BDS, they never even tried a strategy like that. They pulled back. They had more of a standard way of playing, which is putting pressure from mining, putting pressure from white stairs, and with that, you'll be fine. It's just for forZe, they're afraid of the response that BDS would have as a more aggressive team because of Shaiko's spearhead to deal with any players in spring.
Speaking of BDS, we do have the player highlight for you. Renshiro. He's left-handed, by the way. He's a southpaw for people that are curious. He uses his left hand right here, hello, to control the mouse. So if you are left-handed, you've also got Mo in North America, who is also left-handed. Renshiro is the standout player for BDS. Shaiko started off strong, but then he cooled off after the rehost. Alem's got some very impactful kills, and even though he didn't top the standings like Renshiro did, Alem's was all over the place when it comes to that scoreboard, exceeding on attack and defense, and just going to show how strong he is as a player in addition to this team. And we actually have an interview ready with Alems. So we're going to get to talk to him and pick his brains. So we were just, oh, you were very close. You were very, very, there you go. There you go. You were sitting, you were right, you were full, you were high def. Congratulations on your victory today. You played extremely well. Just wanted to get that on the record for you. But
yeah, thank you.
Today, how much do you think the Thatcher ban affected the matchup, and was it the main story for you versus forZe?
Since I joined BDS, we played Kafe a lot, and we never used Thatcher. So, and we knew that forZe is using it. So we were like, okay, let's ban it. After we knew that we were starting on the attacking side, so it was kind of a gamble to ban it at the start, but we were confident on our attacks. So yeah, we just ban it, and we were like, okay, guys, let's put as many rounds as we can because that's the hardest part. And yeah, we did it. We put like 4 attacks, I guess. So.
Yeah, that's what we were focusing on, is that the statistics actually came up during the matchup that showed that Kafe was like 56 to 44 or 54 to 46%, something like that. It's very defender favored, obviously, as most people know, and for you to take 4 of 6 rounds on attack, regardless of the bans, is quite impressive. Pivoting over to some of the gambles that you took, and especially when you were on defense, you had a couple rounds where you had Shaiko go off and spawn peek. This isn't something that we see against a lot of teams. Why did you do it against forZe? Was it solely because it was against forZe? And was this something that you just did because you already had such a large lead against them, or was there a deeper understanding to it?
forZe is a very, very good team, and this is the kind of team that when you like late them attacks and place everyone to set up the attacks, you can't win because this is like planned strategies and stuff. So you have to be aggressive on them at the start and then pull back and wait and find the gap or like where the dead guy is not, and that's why we play like kind of aggressive at the start and play like very very aggressive and very like harass them at the start.
I mean, it worked very, very effectively. You can't really take that away from you. Since you came onto this roster, I just wanted to talk about you in particular. You came in from Team Secret. You came onto the team. How have you seen BDS change as a squad with you on the roster?
I think I bring some like kind of experience regarding like how a team works strategically. I learned a lot by being with Team Secret. Like I was surrounded by great guys like Leon, Mipi, even Feral, who came from G2 and bring us a lot of new things. And then when I came, I was like telling them, guys, you know, when there is only one guy on site and 3 roamers, we can push fast, or like all the stuff like that. So I think I'm helping them a lot with that, and with the calm and like how to say the good mentality, like the good environment.
Experience means an awful lot to these teams. We've seen it from every single region where, and you know, an older player in terms of experience steps on and it completely transfers them. I mean, look at forZe. Look at how much better that team got when Shockwave stepped onto that roster too. So once again, congratulations. I'm glad that you're adjusting well to BDS. Anything to say at the end of the interview?
Yeah, I would like to thank everyone who supported us. I would like to thank my teammates for trusting me, and like BDS, of course, and my mom, because she said that I never thanks her to interviews. So thanks, Mom.
That's really sweet. Everybody else, I think, can take lessons from that. There are very few opportunities that we shouldn't take to thank our mothers. So, very sweet words, very wholesome as well. It was nice seeing you. I'll see you in Montreal unless you happen to win again and I interview again. But take care of yourself and enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you, Parker. See you.
Thank you.